Good evening. Oh, is that live? Yeah. Okay, there we go.
And we're on the 520.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Yreka City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. This meeting is set for 5:20, but we are starting at 5:23 p.m. At this time, do I have any public comment? Okay, no public comment. I will go into closed session at this time. Okay, it's Yreka City Council meeting for October 1st, 2024. We're coming back into open session after our closed session meeting on the 5:20 p.m. agenda. And we have reportable action on the closed session. The city is entering into a settlement agreement with the parties to obtain the monies that is owed to the city. So we will be entering into a settlement agreement with the parties regarding that agenda item. With that, I will close the meeting. Good evening. Welcome to the Yreka City Council meeting for October 21st, 2024. This is we're going into our closed session meeting. We're at 5:40. This is the 5:30 p.m. calendar. Do you have any public comment at this time? Okay. If no public comment, we will go back into or we'll go into closed session. I'll do that. Good evening. We're returning back into open session after our closed session meeting. We have no reportable action, but we did schedule a uh, meeting to come back for a review of the item on October, what was it? I'm sorry, guys. 23rd at 5 p.m. Again, that's October 23rd at 5 p.m. We'll be coming back with that meeting scheduled. So meeting is adjourned and we'll be back in about 25 minutes. Good evening. I'll call the order of the Yreka City Council meeting for October 1st, 2024. The time is now 6:31. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. I think every candidate is here tonight, including myself, but I have to be here, as Councilman Davis said. Before we get started on tonight's meeting, an issue did come up that needs to be placed on the agenda for a decision for us to move forward. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our legal counsel, Mr. Jared, to weigh into the council. Mr. Jared?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yes, as the mayor just said, an issue has come up after the posting of the agenda that requires immediate action prior to the next council meeting. And this item relates to the requested leave of absence for Mayor Pro Tem Paul McCoy. This relates to placing this on the agenda would be pursuant to Government Code 5495 4.2b, which requires that the council take this action and make two findings. One, that the item has come up after the posting of the agenda, and two, requires immediate action. As to item one, this item was brought to our attention of the need for a leave of absence within the last, since Friday. And two, requires immediate action due to government code section 36 513, which has a 60-day time period for any member council member who misses consecutive council meetings during that time period, or council meetings within a consecutive 60-day period. So the request is for the council to add this item on the agenda and require a motion to that effect at this point.
Okay, I'd like to go to the council for a motion for this item for Councilman Pro Tim McCoy's absence. Um,
I have a
oh,
question.
I have a question first before you go to that. Question from Councilman Baker.
Mr. Jared, can you outline the time frames that are involved? I mean, you said 60 days, but when does that start? When does that end?
Yes, so it would be appropriate to actually add that to the agenda before we get into discussion. But the question you raised does could play into that. So yes, the time frame from when the consecutive 60 days starts is from the last council meeting that a council member was at. And so looking back on the last council meeting that Mr. McCoy was present, this could, at the next council meeting, end up in a potential lapse. Therefore, that's why it's necessary to add this at this time.
Thank you. I'll make the motion to add this item to our agenda.
I have a motion from Councilman Baker and a second from Councilman Davis to add this item regarding Councilman McCoy in his absence to the agenda. I'll do roll call. Councilman Haig.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Mayor Middleton, aye. So the motion passes 4-0. Okay. Mr. Jared, back to me now.
Yes, at this point, it would be appropriate for you to make any statement that you need to make,
Okay.
then take any brief public comment, and then have council discussion as with any item, and then a vote on the action.
Okay. Thank you. Um, so just to let the public know that Mr. McCoy has reached out, and it is with regret that he is dealing with a serious health issue. He has advised that he is being seen by a cardiologist and has not released him to leave the home for anything that might be, sorry, that might be work related. His hopes is to come back to the city council within a week or so, but of course, there are no guarantees. At this time, he wishes everybody or wants to tell everybody that he thanks them, the council, the city of Yreka, for their support during his time of absence and recovery to his illness. You have all been supportive. I miss you all. I'm anxious to get back to work with the council on the issues that concern our great city. So that's from Mr. McCoy. So it saddens me. I'm sorry, I'm a little sad. Um, I miss him. I hope he hurries back. I hope he gets well, but he is facing some health challenges at this time. So um, I'll open up to comments from the public at this time for that. Just this, yeah, since it was placed at the last minute. Okay. Councilman comments, and then we discussed, I think, Mr. McCoy's absence of the duration, correct, Mr. Jared?
Yes, at this point, you could discuss any time limit you would like to place on that, or however you'd like to handle it.
Okay. He's hoping to return next week, as we know. There's no guarantees in life and medical stuff. I would request that we grant um, Councilman McCoy a granted absent for the rest of 2024 if need be. If need be. He's hoping to come back next week. Any comments? Everybody's sitting there in silence. I'm already sitting there in silence. I know it's hard for me to read that too. Sorry. Should be more than I thought it was going to be. Oh, question from Councilman Ledbetter. Or
No,
sorry,
no, city
Manager
manager.
Ledbetter.
Yeah, I just so everybody is aware, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, is at this moment, Mr. McCoy needs permissions from this body to miss over 60 days. And at this moment, it sounds like you guys are discussing what that duration you would like to see granted. On the table, we have the rest of this calendar year.
That's what I propose. I mean, it's now we're going into our first meeting of October. That's only like four more meetings. Wait, three more meetings because we don't have one on November 5th. We come back November 15th. So it's about 3 or 4 meetings and left for the calendar year. Regular meetings.
Mr. Mayor, when does the 60 days start? And when does it end? Are we past the 60 days?
In the next week, I believe. Can you restate that, Mr. Jared, for Councilman Davis?
Certainly. So it's Government Code Section 36513A, and it states if a council member is absent without permission from all regular city council meetings for 60 days consecutively from the last regular meeting he or she attended, his office becomes vacant and shall be filled as any other vacancy, period. So, reading of this is that it's all about regular council meetings. From the last regular council meeting that the council member attended, 60 days consecutively thereafter, if that member has um, missed all regular council meetings from the one after the last one they attended. And so what we have here was Mr. McCoy missing a meeting. I believe that his last meeting was it August 17th? Was that the date that identified?
I believe, yeah, it was the last meeting in August that Mr. McCoy was here for.
It would have been August 20th, I believe. And so then 60 days from that date, then puts it as October 19th. And so next council meeting, October 15th, although that falls within that 60-day period, he knows he will not be attending that. And therefore, going after that time frame, or believes he will not be attending that, going after that time frame jeopardizes him missing this window in which to ask for your permission to miss these council meetings within that 60-day period.
Everybody got that? Okay. I'm proposing just in case he needs it. There's no guarantees right now. I mean, he's hopeful um, that we extend a courtesy to provide him in the absence and grant him through the end of miss the rest of the meetings through 2024 and expect him back in 2025. Should that be the case, he's only back the next meeting. We don't know, but I would hope the council, if it was one of us, would give us the same courtesy should we be faced with a health issue as of this, and be compassionate and considerate that he doesn't lose his seat after missing so many meetings due to an illness and after putting in 6 years for the city of Yreka. So that's my request. Councilman Gay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I turned over here.
So I definitely see what you're saying. I would say that we bring it back before the end of the year. Just for the fact is we have the four of us here as a council, and I think it would be appropriate that if we have to, just judging by what's going on, it sounds like he'll be back, but if some freak reason he can't come back, then we as the council should be our decision making to move forward on something at that point in time. So instead of bombarding the next city council with that. So I think that what should happen before the end of the year.
Okay. So should I not be here and you not be here and a new council takes their seat? Well, we know you're not going to be here.
Right.
Maybe for me, possibility. Um, it's probably going to be December 17th that new council gets seated. So do you want to meet the meeting before that? Say we'll grant the wish for his absent through, is that December? I can't read.
December 3rd.
Is that December 3rd?
So bring it back to December 3rd.
December 3rd.
meeting. Okay.
But we're granting him an absence through December 3rd. If need be.
If need to be, yes, correct. If need to be.
Okay.
We would want to bring it back to December 3rd, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I'm okay with that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Is that a motion then?
I'll make the motion then.
Okay.
Bring it back December 3rd.
I have a motion from Councilman Kaeg to grant
I'll second that.
Council McCoy the absent through December 3rd,
Correct.
2024. And I have a second from Councilman Davis. I'll do roll call.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have a clarification on the
Okay.
motion. As I'm understanding the motion, it's made excusing of absence would be through the December 3rd meeting. So, meaning that you would bring it back on December 3rd, but permission would be given to allow for his absence on December 3rd as well.
Correct.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So he can miss December 3rd.
Can you just read the motion in its entirety for the minutes, please?
Councilman Kaeg?
Oh, sorry.
She wants you to read the motion for the county clerk, Miss County Clerk.
Make a motion to bring it back December 3rd for his absence until that December 3rd and on that day. And if he's not being able to be present on that day, then we'll have another decision making at that point in time.
Okay.
Is that clear enough as mud?
Is that clear enough?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I have the, I need to read it again, or am I okay? I'm okay?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll go back to roll call. So I had the motion from Councilman Kaeg, second from Councilman Davis. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg?
Aye.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
And Mayor Middleton, aye. So the motion passes 4-0 for Mr. McCoy's absence, and we wish him well. We hope he gets back to a full recovery, and I look back forward to having him back next to me. And as we know, it can be a little animated at times, but I enjoy my time with and he puts a lot of passion into our city. So we wish him well, and look forward to him being back. All right. Okay. My computer's about to die. So public comment. Public participation is welcome and invited at all city council meetings. This time is set aside for residents to address the city on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the regular agenda. If your comments concern an item noted on the regular agenda, please address the council when this item is open for public comment. The city requests that persons addressing the city council refrain from making personal, slanderous, profane, or disruptive remarks. Council members, when recognized by the mayor, may ask clarifying questions of the presenter, but no action may be taken by the city council during public comment section of the meeting. Under the Brown Act, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the posted agenda. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the agenda. If your comments concern an item listed under the public hearing or new business section of the agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. Please speak into the microphone, the podium, electronically just up and down to accommodate the speaker. Please state your name for the record prior to providing your comments. Please address the council as a whole. If you have documents to present, please provide a minimum of 7 copies. These become public record. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Since council is unable to take action on issues not on the agenda, your matter may be referred to staff for follow-up or placed on a future agenda. The public comment period is not intended to be a question and answer period or conversations with council or city staff. Do I have a public comment at this time? Come to the podium. State your name, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm Jan Osborne. I'm a Yreka resident, and I'm speaking to you now because I had planned to speak at the public comment period before the closed session that was dealing with the evaluation of the city manager. But I wasn't able to do that. And I have talked with the mayor and he explained to me how that happened. But I want you just what that explanation was. So if anybody else wants to do that sometimes, you have to be standing right in front of that door, or you won't know that they've opened the door because they opened the meeting. They close one part of it and then open it and then close it. But if you want to make public comments before a closed session, then stand in front of that door. And I've asked the mayor to please put a sign to that effect for people. And I've asked if I may make those comments now. And my comments have to do with an email that I sent to most of you, those who I couldn't reach by phone. I sent an email about the evaluation and what my thoughts are on the evaluation procedure. As a citizen of Yreka, I have an expectation of all of you, all the city council members and employees, that they will treat the citizens with the highest level of professionalism. So I am requesting that in your evaluation period, you apply the same high standard of professionalism to the general or the city manager that you have exhibited to me in our many varied discussions, very professional. And I would like to see that something that's in the evaluation for the city manager as well. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment at this time?
I broke my foot, so bear with me. So I have asked many times for a vacancy tax to help clean up our town from blighted buildings with no avail. I am asking this council to put on the future agenda to have our code enforcement law firm look into the blighted buildings through our town, to have a conversation about this issue. Shop Smart, Grandma's Kitchen, our Grandma's House, the Cooley and Pollard True Value Hardware Store, Twin Broadway Theater, Siskiyou Daily News, Committed Tattoo Parlor, and Shasta Terrace Apartment, the burned out unit. Children are playing in it. And any other blighted and abandoned buildings throughout our town, or put a very stiff vacancy tax on these owners to fix and fill these vacant buildings. And to Paul McCoy, I hope you a speedy recovery and God bless. I will pray for you. Yeah.
Any other public comment?
Lorenzo Love, you have a self-imposed deadline coming up when you're going to criminalize homelessness. We, the public, has not seen any action on this homeless crisis. Once you criminalize homelessness, it's going to be a disaster for the city. You drive them off public property, where are they going to go? Private property. You're going to cause a mess for the police, a mess for the courts, It's going to be extremely expensive. The public would like to know what the hell is going on with the homelessness. Are you discussing things in private? Or are you just have your head in the sand like you have for years, pretending it'll just go away? We'd like to know.
Any other public comment at this time? Okay, now I'll close public comment. Item number 7, consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one motion unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. A, approval ratification of payments issued from September 8th, 2024 through September 21st, 2024. Approval of minutes on the regular agenda held September 17th, 2024. C, approval of the minutes of the special meeting held September 24th, 2024. D, approve the appointment of Aaron J. White to the Yreka Volunteer Fire Department. E, approval of the memorandum understanding between Great Northern Services, City of Yreka, for implementation of the Community Development Block Grant, Siskiyou County Protein and Produce Program. Recommend City Council action before you is the motion to adopt and consent the agenda. The City Council, the City of Yreka has presented.
Mr. Mayor, item E on that memorandum of understanding. I don't have any negative feelings about it. Can we just kind of talk about that a little bit and have that maybe a separate item?
We'll apply item E for discussion. Is that your request?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Davis has requested item 7E be pulled for discussion. Is that okay? Everybody in favor? Fine. Okay. So we'll go back to the consent agenda for 7A through D.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda 7A, B, C, and D as presented.
I have a motion from Councilman Kaeg, approval of 7A, D, C, D on the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Second from Councilman Baker. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
And I am Mayor Middleton. Motion passes 4-0 for items 7A through D. So we'll go back to item 7E for discussion. This is the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Great Northern Services, City of Yreka, for implementation of the Community Development Block Grant, Siskiyou County Protein and Produce Program. So Mr. Leber is going to get up there and speak to us about the program, or do you want to hear Councilman Davison's questions first about the program?
Mr. Davis and I spoke before the meeting. I think it would make sense for me just to read the staff memo so that everybody was on the same page, and if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. So
thank you. Perfectly fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yreka City Council. This is Jason Ledbetter, the city manager. So ultimately, the Protein and Produce Program, or PNP, is funded by the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is housing and community development with the state of California. The program directly benefits low to moderate income residents in Siskiyou County. Great Northern Services will be responsible for the administering and implementation of this program. So they're a nonprofit that helps cities go after grants similar to this, very similar to the Resource Center. The program will provide fresh and frozen protein and produce to 11 distribution sites throughout Siskiyou County. So it's not specific to the city of Yreka. The city of Yreka has no formal obligation to participate in any way. We did not go after the grant. This is the county and Great Northern Services going after this grant. The request and reasoning for the memorandum of understanding is to provide education to the city council and public that this program will be rolling out in the city of Yreka. And if for some reason the council objects to this program, if they could do so now, then ultimately Great Northern Services would not provide this opportunity within the city of Yreka. The staff has determined this is a great program for our community and will help in lowering food insecurity for our citizens. There's absolutely no financial impact whatsoever to the city we have no involvement at all other than signing a memorandum of understanding that really just tells you guys what the program is all about. But I am here to also answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. I have no questions. Any other council members have questions?
No, thank you. Mr. Ledbetter and I have spoke earlier today about this program, and he basically said the same thing. It sounds like a really good program, and I want to support it, but I wanted to support it by itself. So
Okay.
that's the reason. And I think it's good for all of us. I read it and it was great. So,
all right.
So I move with we accept that. Item 7E.
Is that a motion?
Oh, sorry, you'll have to go out to
I'm sorry.
public
Yeah,
comment.
I was.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Got ahead of
myself.
myself.
Wait, you're jumping ahead. Public comment. Okay, no public comment. 7E, approval of memorandum of understanding between the Great Northern Services, the city of Yreka, and the implementation of the Community Development Block Grant for Siskiyou County Protein and Produce Program. So, Mr. Davis, your motion to approve 7E?
Yes, I move that we accept item 7E.
Okay, I have a motion to approve item 7E from Councilman Davis.
Second it. Go ahead. I'll second it.
Second, I have a second from Councilman Kaeg. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
And I, Mayor Middleton. Motion passes for 7E, 4-0. Okay, old business, city manager and the fire chief. This is agenda title, Yreka Fire Department presentation. This is no action needed presentation. Is for discussion only at tonight. So welcome, Chief Lemus or Mr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, Yreka City Council, Chief Lemos and I are gonna tackle this one together. I'd like to read the staff report, and then Chief Lemos will start into the slideshow, and then there's a few slides that I'll go over. The whole thing hopefully being interactive with the council, and then inevitably opening up to public comment. So I'm just going to start out by reading the staff memo. So on April 20th of 2021, the city of Yreka City Council voted 5-0 approving a planning grant application for $250,000 of funding for a new fire station project. This was to site and then start the engineering. On October 4th of 2022, the city of Yreka City Council voted 5-0 to create a fire department ad hoc committee. The fire ad hoc consisted of 2 Yreka City Council members, Mayor Pro Tem McCoy and Council Member Kaeg. The city manager, assistant city manager at the time, Retta Hogan, current Yreka Fire Department staff and volunteers, as well as prior volunteers, participation from the State of California Office of Emergency Services, CAL FIRE, South Yreka Fire, Montague Fire, Caduck Emergency Staff, and Siskiyou County Supervisor Ogren all participated in all or the majority of the ad hoc meetings. Perspectives from Fairchild Medical staff and Madrone Hospice staff were also considered and discussed. The feedback from the ad hoc meetings were to add paid fire staff to the Yreka Volunteer Fire Department. To mitigate the pressure and burnout on volunteer staff, the idea to add paid staff to limit the need to have volunteer response on medical calls was made a priority by the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee also recommends a new fire hall in order to accommodate the needs of the city. The current facility is built in 2 phases, the 1930s and an addition in the 1960s. The facility has many historical issues in relation to structure stability, as well as the standard limitations from the eras the phases were constructed, meaning the building code was met at that time, but the building code is substantially different now in 2024 than it was in the 1930s or the 1960s. So on September 5th of 2023, the city of Yreka City Council voted 4-0. Davis was absent to contract with Nichols, Melberg, and Rosetto, commonly referred to around here as NMR, for architecture, engineering, and construction management services for the Yreka Volunteer Fire Department new fire station project in an amount not to exceed just over $1 million. About $455,000 of these dollars was for phase one design fee. About $418,000 were for construction documents, about $244,000 for construction administration. Construction administration happens when you actually have a funded project and you're going to break ground. Currently, the city has spent about $248,000 of this $1.1 million cost for design, engineering, and construction administration, with the majority subsidized by that community development block grant of $250,000. The construction administration is only pertinent, obviously, if the city has funding to begin the construction. In order to get to 100% engineered plan set, the city will still need to gap fund about $620,000. Hopefully this is making sense, but we'll go over this more, I'm sure, in the future as well. The increased call volume since 1990 is mostly attributed to the increase in medical call emergencies. Volunteerism has decreased nationally, and the trend does not appear to be changing. The age of the current fire hall poses issues for proper functionality and response to emergency. The need for a new fire hall and paid staffing continues to be the most logical solutions for the issues at the volunteer Yreka Fire Department. And staff has prepared a slideshow to discuss what a new fire hall and paid staffing would look like if funding were made available to the city of Yreka with any new revenue streams. And so ultimately, Chief Lemos and I are now going to dive into the PowerPoint. If you can put that up, Mrs. Prohaska. And some of these will be familiar and some of these will be new slides. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Fire Chief Lemos.
Well, thank you, Jason. Members of the council, members of the public, thank you for entertaining us tonight with, or allowing us to entertain you with this information. So some of you have seen this before, this presentation, in one fashion or another, but in the fire department was established back in 1856, if you're not aware of that. So that, tells you a lot about, the storied history of the department. And going back to when we first really had records of any consequence, you can go back to I went back to the minutes from when Secretary Tom Colburn kept immaculate records, but started looking at these stats that we had for medical calls. And when we first started running medicals in 1991, thereabouts, just as that blue just started to show, maybe into 1994. And you can see how that drastically in this chart, how drastically those numbers increased. I mean, I think, under 100 there in 1994, and it just ballooned over time to, as many as 2,000 calls. Not all those were medical. You can see even some of the fires have increased over time, and a lot of you are aware of, if you have a scanner at home, how much, how busy we are. But something that was just more or less we kind of inherited, because it wasn't anything that really changed in the city. I think it was advent of possibly the cell phone and a few other things. But in order to explain it, I think you just kind of have to understand it's an aging population. There are other factors at play that, no one in this community really has control over. But we, as an all hazards department, when the alarm goes off, we go. And we don't have the time or we're not trained just to wait. We just respond. So as you can see, the medical calls have been the primary reason for the increase in responses. But all in all, I think overall in all different aspects, we've seen an increase in calls just in general. So next slide. So again, over time, you can see how the volunteer numbers dropped from, when I got in 94, we had over 40, and that has dropped substantially down to, one point, 15 or 16, maybe 17 people. We're in good shape right now. As you heard on the consent agenda, we have another young man coming in.
And we've been fortunate in that regard, even during times when you see volunteerism is down. But I can tell you is I've watched the numbers over the years, and they ebb and flow. They're up for a while, and then you lose a couple, and then you get a couple in, one in, and you lose three. You just never know. So with that number of calls, it's just you have to understand that you can't sustain that with a volunteer force, not easily anyway. So over that period of time, you can see how much it dropped, and it's only stands to reason that you're going to have to address that at some point, and that's where we are there now. So next slide. Again, another graph showing, in this case, workload expressed as a number of alarms per volunteer. So again, as the volunteer numbers dropped, what happened? The calls went up. And, two diverging data like that, it's going to end up creating some problems. And we've had times where we're wondering if we were going to have enough to respond. And that's very concerning to everyone. We have good relationships and agreements with uh, neighboring departments, Cal Fire, Montague, South Yreka, but generally for medical calls, we attempt to handle those on our own. But it just goes to show you over time how that has affected the department and their ability to respond. So next slide. And I think the reality, as you say, there is much different. In this slide here, it basically shows you those yellow bar graphs there, that those are actual calls by actual individuals. And so in 2022, we had 2,025 alarms, and one individual ran those 1,118 calls. It still, to this day, still baffles my mind to think that that firefighter was that dedicated, that busy, and had the time to do that, and is still with us. Hasn't quit because he got burned out. So that's even more shocking to me. But in addition, there are other folks that ran, 952, 944, 659 calls. These are people that are not, go home and watch TV. They're all busy, have other jobs. They're busy individuals, and I know them. They stay active, and so how they are able to make that many calls is like I say, a testament to their dedication. Not to say that the other, members didn't do anything either, but those folks that ran the calls had the ability and the desire to do it, and thank God we have them. But one or two of those, which now one of those individuals has retired from the department, Mr. Tim Pope, so he's no longer, running those calls. Somebody else, next man up, next woman up, next firefighter up, has to step in and fill that gap, and that's sometimes where you run into problems with making sure that someone's there to answer the call. We've been fortunate that we've been able to do that. I can't say for certain in the future that will be the case, because it's just human nature. Life gets in the way when you're making plans to do other things. So as a volunteer, it can be difficult to spend time with your family. Things just come up. So next slide. As you all know, training is very important for our line of work. Firefighters need to have training in a myriad of different disciplines: emergency medical, structured fires, wildland, driver operator training, hazardous materials response training. And I think that number is pretty accurate, but it's 500 to 600 hours that we do our best to maintain. Refresher training for all of those. We just completed some for emergency medical. We're going to dive into hazardous materials response training here very soon. So that's all time in addition to running the calls. You don't just get, okay, you understand it because you were on the call, and, bless you, and you can move on, go back to the station. It's classroom along with, some hands-on that we do, at the training center. So, 30 hours mandatory of additional training for wildland fire refresher training. That's just an example thrown in there to give you an idea. So with all the calls you run, then you got to do it, more time for training. And sometimes, quite honestly, that prevents people from actually filling out an application once they learn of all the time that's required. So, and then like I said, they already have a 40-hour plus work week. And those are when the folks that we've had in the past that have retired due to work, they come and say, Chief, I just can't do this anymore. I'm never here. And, they're going through a tough decision process because they want to volunteer, but it's just not in the cards. So you have to honor their wishes and, let them go, and hopefully you can recruit someone else. Next slide. And in 2022, when we did these presentations, or using that data, we did these presentations. So it's still accurate to this day. This is just a heat map showing in blue there where the medical calls basically occur, and it's spread out throughout the city, the residential area, pretty much all through town and into the east. What do you call it? Well, it's the Camel Tract and the Carew housing. You can see it on the bottom right there. So it's pretty well evenly spread out. We do get calls everywhere. And one thing I was going to say too is, and Assistant Chief Lostlaw can back me up on this, is that we get a tremendous amount of calls while we're already on another call. We double up, triple up sometimes. We get 3-4 calls in a row sometimes. And it's like, that'll get your attention. And so some of those that you see in there, in that heat map, it's been going on for a while, but it seems like it's becoming more and more of an issue to where, it really tests your ability to respond. And we do have to call on other departments to do that. But, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with for a volunteer department. So next slide. Okay. Lay station. So this is our fire station that you saw there. It's kind of covered up there, but you can see the apparatus on that first picture there. You can see the style of the building. It's, the left side of it there was in 1930s. The first 3 engine bays on the eastern part of the building. And then we have the other 3 bays to the west of that were all 1960s era that they added on to. We have experienced sinkholes from an old mining shaft. Created some issues there. Had to get a structural engineer involved to address the issue and mitigate the hazard. We didn't have anything that the whole station didn't fall into a hole, thank God, but it created some expensive repairs. A broken water main also created another where we found another sinkhole or a cistern. We're not quite sure, and that was another issue that kind of made us wake up a little bit and pay attention for the future of having an essential services building in that condition is very concerning. So as you all see what's going on in the southeast right now from a hurricane, if we had terrible fire, flood, things of that nature, of natural disaster, our building has to be able to withstand that so we can respond and help people. So if we're not able to do that, it's a problem. Other issues: no exhaust capture system for the apparatus. We do have inline filters on the rigs, but you can see by the color of the walls in the building that it doesn't catch at all. Single pane windows, not a very energy efficient building. I can attest to that as I'm doing paperwork in the wintertime. The wind blows through the window, and even though I got a good layer of insulation, it gets pretty cold. No sprinkler system. Another concern. We have had some close calls with electrical fires. Not recently. It's all been mitigated and taken care of, but that is a concern of mine. Insufficient equipment storage. The crews do a great job in being able to keep things where they need to go, but we're definitely cramped for space. Minimal space for modern apparatus. It's been stated that we have to let the air out of the tires. That's not true. But when we do put chains on the ladder truck, it is difficult sometimes when there's snow and ice built up on the apron to get that apparatus out the door. We have to really watch it and make sure it's plowed consistently during a snowstorm. Typical lifespan for a fire station, which I mentioned the term earlier, essential services building, 50 years. We're well beyond that at, probably 80 or 90 years now. So moving close to 100. And of course, it's non-ADA compliant. When I was hired in 2020 as a full-time chief, since that time, we haven't addressed it, but there's no real way for the public to, if they don't have my phone number, there's no way for them to let me know that they're down at the door and want to come in and ask questions or, that type of thing. It's not really conducive for for an office type setting. So all things that we need to address. Next slide. Just a picture of the sinkhole created by the water main break. And the guys got in and cut a section of it out so we could find out where the leak was and address it. Made a made a pretty good mess there for a few days. So next slide. And here's the backhoe after they saw cut the concrete, getting the piece of the concrete out of there so they could pump it out and put some backfill in there, some gravel, fix the water leak, put the gravel back in and compact it, and seal it back up with the 6 inches of concrete. So it disrupted our operations for a short time, but we're fortunate that it wasn't worse than that, where things started disappearing. So next slide. So this is interesting. A lot of people don't know this. So through the process, when I think it's important that this is in here at an appropriate time. There was a question as to whether the proposed sales tax measure be a special tax or a general tax. So a lot of questions came up within the department, and so I put it to them, and during a regularly scheduled training meeting, at the conclusion, we took a vote, and the firefighters unanimously decided for a general tax. So that is why we are where we are. And to me, nothing speaks louder than for the people that are actually doing the work, responding to the citizens' request for service, that we need this sooner rather than later. They know that from Measure H, those that were here then and those that have heard the stories, it took 3 tries. And that's time we don't have in my mind. So we discussed it thoroughly, answered questions internally to make sure that everyone understood the implications of both. And we ended up with the general tax. And I just want to make that clear. Next slide. Like I said, we've been very successful on getting some additional volunteers. And like I said, we're much better off now than we were in, say, 2018, 2019. But people's lives change. And so we have to keep recruiting, continually. And what you see there is Klamath River Engine Company #2, back in, I guess, 1888, possibly. Yeah, April 5th of 88. So as you can see, things have changed dramatically. So that's all I have. Jason?
Yeah, next slide, Cindy. Thank you. And you can just jump on to the next one. So just to reiterate kind of what was in the staff report, we came to city council and we created a fire ad hoc that was formed with local experts and, for medical response and fire safety. We had council member Keg, we had Mayor Pro Tem McCoy, we had myself, we had Retta Hogan, who was the assistant city manager at the time. We had volunteers, we had staff, we had past and present volunteers. Chief Gilman was there with some officers at multiple meetings, state OES. We had Cal Fire, South Yreka Fire, Montague Fire, Caduck Emergency Preparedness staff, Siskiyou County Supervisor Ogren was there, and on a very specified meeting, we included Madrone Hospice staff and also Fairchild medical administrative staff to deal with some things that Chief Lemos has been working on with a number of other agencies for many years, which is kind of the recurring folks that are calling that may need to be moved or exercised into deeper care, and working with the county, working with Madrone, and working with Fairchild. It was important that we got their perspective ultimately. Next slide. So the reason that we talk about the ad hoc is because recommendations came out of that. This isn't just Chief Lemos and I met one day over coffee and decided we wanted a new fire hall and paid fire staff. Okay, we sat down with these experts that are in this field locally at state agencies, at other local agencies, past volunteers, current volunteers, and they told us what they thought the solutions were. And the solutions, I'm just going to focus on the top 2, paid staff and a new fire hall. The paid staff, ultimately, obviously, for fire response, but really to deal with that increased medical call load. And then obviously a new fire hall, which this council or councils before had decided was a priority, because when I got here, as I pointed out, there was already a grant in order to look at siting and possibly engineering a new site. So the recommendations from the fire ad hoc, from the professionals here, from the state and local fire departments That's where we're getting this information. They're saying you need to have paid staff at the Yreka Fire Department and that your current fire hall is falling apart and you obviously need a new location. Next slide. So with that information, we wanted to kind of just synthesize that into a statement, our problem statement. So then we could talk about what the solutions were. And so here's the problem statement. I'll just read it again. Emergency calls have increased by a factor of 15. Medical calls make up over 80% of the Yreka Volunteer Fire Department response. Since 1990, calls for service have increased from just over 100 to over 2,000. And since 1990, volunteers have decreased from over 41 to below 22. And I know a lot of people talk about the good old days, and it sounds like the good old days were pretty good, if I'm being honest with you, because there was no email, there was no cell phone. So work was a lot different here when you worked for the government, that is for certain. But through this process, I had an interesting idea came to me, and I thought, when was 911 created? You know, and kind of going back, I think most people have heard the really disgusting and heinous story on why it was created based off of an incident in New York City. But when was it completed? When was every location in the state of California, when were you available to call 911? And I was shocked that in the state of California, that was completed in 1986. And so when you think about that, and then you look at the trend line, well, it makes sense, right? We were solving a problem. Life was easier in the past because we did not show up. The fire department did not show up for a medical call, but ultimately 911 got rolled out, it was completed, and now we're seeing over time it just becomes normal that you want to call someone under an emergency. It's not something that you're going to take care of yourself. So I thought that factoid was kind of interesting, quite frankly, that this state didn't officially roll out 911 completely until 1986. They started in the late 70s, but it was not completed until 86. Next slide. So with this problem statement, with this ad hoc, you know, we came back to Chief Lemos and some other folks with the fire department and asked, all right, well, what does paid staff look like? What does the federal standard look like for the city of Yreka? What should we aim for long term? Because we're designing a fire hall at the moment. What does the plan look like in 20 years? And so this organizational chart is the ideal federal standard as to what we should technically have. And you'll notice on the right-hand side that I've circled the paramedics and the EMTs. Next slide, please. The reason that I have them circled is because we then went through and we started to cost out these positions based off of that idealistic organizational chart. And before I could even include anybody in that circle, we were already at $4.6 million. So we stopped. We knew that we were never going to be able to take on $4.6 million of salary annually within the city with our budget. So the reason that this is in here is to show the public that we're not trying to gouge the system. We're not trying to do idealism. We're really, truly just trying to be creative on how we solve our problem. And we're not asking to overload the system with a multitude of new employees. We know that that's not realistic based upon our tax base. Next slide. On that note as well, we were designing the most ideal fire hall for the city into the future. What does that look like? And we want to make sure that we're meeting a standard there. And so ultimately, through that process, we designed a 30,000 square foot fire hall with NMR, or conceptualized one here. And it turns out, working with NMR, that the cost of a new fire hall in the state of California, the going rate is $1,000 per square foot, meaning that this design was $30 million. So we knew immediately that we've over-designed this for a realistic solution for the city of Yreka. Next slide. But we did know that if we're lucky enough to build a new fire hall, we're going to debt service it, similar to how we debt service the police department. We're going to take a loan out. And ideally, we're going to take a USDA loan out, but we can't guarantee that's going to happen. But if we are lucky enough to get a USDA loan, that means we're looking at a rate probably close to 3.875 and a 40-year term, which is really important. And so we went to our bond counsel, Cameron Wiest, and we said, hey, run two different scenarios here on a $15 million loan and a $23 million loan, and tell us what that looks like to pay that back over 40 years on a 3.875 interest rate. And so you can see on the left-hand side that for a $15 million build out, you're looking at about $750,000 annual payment on your, in quotations here, mortgage. And if you're looking at a $23 million build, well, you're looking at about 1.1 million annual payout on the same 40-year 3.875. And so we believe that we're really somewhere in between there, that those seem like manageable annual payments. And so we went back to the drawing board with NMR to really kind of to bring this project into a more appropriate square footage. Next slide. And so I think there's confusion too on how municipalities generally make money. If you're a county in the state of California, you're collecting mostly property tax. If you're a city, you're collecting mostly sales tax ultimately. And so on a sales tax initiative, really for the city, if you look at the history on a 1%, you're somewhere in between 2.4 and 2.9 if you're going back a few years. And if you're trying to make that same amount of money on a property assessment, you're now all of a sudden, you're not taxing people just driving through the community. You're not taxing folks that get our service that are living in Hawkinsville. You're not taxing folks that get our service hypothetically in Montague or South Yreka on agreement. You're only taxing those properties in your city limits, and you're looking at to garner about $2.4 million. Everybody needs to pay an extra $650 annually on their property assessment. And so right off the bat, that seems very high and unrealistic ultimately. You can also obviously go for sales tax revenue. You can attempt to do insurance recovery billing. We had talked about that. I had reached out to a multitude of locations, Roseville primarily, and it really turned out that that was not going to garner as much money for the city as we had assumed. I think we were down like in really close to $100,000 is what we could anticipate making. You can staff with grants in a fire department. They're called safer grants, but unfortunately, they start at 100% funded year one, and then they step down. And so by year three, you're getting 0%, and it's expected that you would pay. So if we got a new funding stream, immediately Chief Lemos and I would go apply for the safer grants because we would obviously want to subsidize our costs and get staffing in as quickly as possible. But it's just not you can't just go get these grants without a plan because inevitably you're going to end up needing to cut staff because you're going to be over on salary because at some point you're paying for the staff and the grant is no longer paying for it. And then ultimately you can always redistribute the general fund. And so you can make some cuts. You can take money away from certain departments and put those into whatever department you're trying to fund. So these are the general ways that people generally at local municipalities attempt to garner revenue to take care of issues. Next slide. So I think I have these two backwards, unfortunately, but we went back, we got more realistic with the staff, with Chief Lemos, and we said, all right, what could we do here differently? We reached out to the city of Anderson to see what they were doing because they transitioned from volunteers to paid staff. They're kind of a similar size to us and they're pretty close. So reaching out to them, they claimed that the best thing we could possibly do was schedule a 48 hours on, 96 hours off schedule. And that's what they did. They do that and they have 3 employees on at all times. So 24 hours a day, there's always 3 people living at the facility for that 48-hour time period. And everybody works the same shift because it really equates to essentially 6 days. So you're always falling backwards. So if you work Saturday, Sunday, you eventually roll back so that you work every single day of the week. So no one would need to request a weekend off because ultimately their rolling schedule would create a weekend, if that makes sense. And so for us, we thought, well, this is a novel idea. How could we utilize this same type of staffing? And we came up with the idea of hiring 6 people, which would cost the city about $900,000 that what we would call top step. So worst case scenario with the whole benefit package. And we would have 2 people on 24 hours a day constantly. So we would do the same thing as Anderson, except we would guarantee there would be 2 instead of 3 people on, meaning you always had a response. At 3 in the morning, there's a medical call. It's guaranteed. You're going to get an even quicker response, thereby trying to save and limit the need for volunteers at really obscure hours. We're always going to need volunteers at the Yreka Fire Department. We want the volunteers, but we want to maximize them so they can also enjoy a living standard to go enjoy time off so that they're not constantly being inundated with the requirement to come in and volunteer. Next slide. So we went from that very gigantic org chart down to a very synthesized org chart. And so we have like an assistant chief right under Fire Chief Lemos. We think that we could possibly fund that with a new funding stream, maybe in between year 3 and 5. But what we're looking at are the 6 positions just underneath that. We're calling them fire captain and fire engineer. And so these 6 positions would be the major additions where you would always have 2 of them on at all times. Next slide. So we started working with human resources because we need job descriptions on what these positions are. And so human resources has been meeting with the fire chief and the team. We're going to meet tomorrow. We meet every 2 weeks on Wednesdays and kind of start fleshing out, okay, if we do end up getting revenue and we are moving forward, how are we going to make sure that we're moving forward in a very timely fashion? And so that's how human resources is involved. And finance is currently involved because we'll have another meeting here in October with Cameron Wiest to go over how we're going to go about attempting to get a USDA loan for 3.875% for 40 years. Next slide. And so ultimately at this point, I am going to kick it back to Chief Lemos because this is a new design. This is not the 30,000 square foot design. This is a just under 18,000 square foot design that I think Chief Lemos can kind of walk us through. And then after this, there's some nice imagery of what this site would actually look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So yeah, I mean, I think if you saw the renditions that came out in the water bill, and this was in there, or the utilities bill that had the information on the new station, you may have seen that and kind of wondered what all this was. If you've seen plans for buildings before, you probably haven't seen too many for fire stations, and they are unique in their design because there's a lot going on there. So you can kind of see on the left there in the tan colored background, those are the engine bays. And just kind of it may not be exactly like that, but we do have 6 to 8 apparatus that 6 for sure that stay in the station, and some like the utility and the chief's command vehicles, they're usually outside, either at a residence or staying at somebody's house to respond from home. But we can stack those in there, nose to tail, butt to butt, if you will, and then you utilize the different ways of leaving the station and not having to wait for one to leave or to have to back one out. So there's different ways we can do that, and that's kind of just depicted in the apparatus bay portion there. So and then on the left of that, you see there's room for a workshop, an SCBA room, which is our self-contained breathing apparatus, where we refill the bottles, do our repairs, maintenance, low-level maintenance on those, hose storage, things of that nature, which, in a lot of ways now we're kind of scrambling for to have more room. And then as you move into the functional part of the structure, we have room for offices up there in the pink where the entrance would be. And actually, that right at the top there, inside that triangle, you see looks like an apparatus. That would be one of the vintage apparatus we would have displayed in the front, which is really a nice touch. And then there's just like I say, general office space, training room, where we have education there in the yellow. We have a spot there for, you can have Firefighters sit there as you're getting instruction on certain topics. Um, Fitness, we have a weight room, break room, changing room. One thing I'll say that a lot of people aren't aware of, generally speaking, is some new cancer guidelines or trying to think now the right term for it, but turnout gear and decontamination room. So that is something that is fairly new for new facility, new fire halls. So that when you come in and you've been on a structure fire and you're all dirty, you need to have a place where you can um, remove your dirty clothing and have a separate room for that to get them right into the uh, cleaning station and into the washer, the extractor, and then have an area where you don't have people that are not contaminated, if you will, because there's all kinds of things go into the smoke that is generated from structure fires. So, and those are all potentially cancer causing. So we're very concerned about that. And the design that goes into that these days is to prevent that. So you always have a clean area and you have a dirty, quote unquote, dirty area where you can remove your turnouts. Um, so that's a very new to the fire service, more or less. Some of the newer ones, I think, in Southern Oregon have that as well. So this just gives you an idea, just a general overview of what the facility would look like from a floor plan standpoint. And if you go to the next, and also we have bunker rooms down at the bottom there for 6 people. So those that are going to be hopefully someday housed in the building full time will have a place to sleep with all the normal accommodations that you would expect. Next slide. So this kind of gives on the right, you can kind of see a general overview from up above. And then on the left is kind of the rear view of kind of how the building would look from the backside. So we have room for apparatus, cleaning, maintenance, recomping hose, that type of thing in the back there, which I got to say, these computer renditions are really lifelike. They're, as you see in some of the slides coming up, it looks just like somebody took a picture and put it in there. But anyway, I thought these were really well done. Next slide. So, and this is the view from the front. I think the only thing missing is right now is having an apron on Main Street right going right to the in the new sidewalk. So for those of you that don't know, is it safe to say where?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not, there's no guarantees.
Yeah, no guarantees, but our proposed location that I've looked at, I've been talking with the gentleman for 8 years since I took over as volunteer chief. Going to use the facility for training. One thing led to another, and we've been speaking ever since about possibly building a station there, and that would be the Shop Smart location. And we would decommission that building, tear it down, and build our site there. That's the plan if everything goes the way we'd like it to go if we're successful. So anyway, yeah, it's a beautiful architectural design. I think it fits. And when I first saw it, I had a feeling we might have to have a lot of changes. The floor plan has had some, but just the general look of it, if it can come out looking like that, I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So I hope you all feel the same way, but I think it fits. It fits the architecture of the community. It's not obtrusive. I think it looks really nice. So next slide. If there is one. Yeah. So that gives you a little different angle. I think it's, modern, but not too over the top. The engine bays are, you see the doors there. Those are called bifold or accordion type doors. We have roll-ups too in the back. These accordion doors are a little more expensive, but they do open faster. And I think overall, that's kind of the trend now in new fire stations that I think are better. I've seen them operate in person, and they seem to me to be a more thoughtful design on a fire station. So next slide. Again, another pick there. And as you can see, those are, gives you a better idea of what it would really look like. It looks like a photograph almost. Or symbol up on the Maltese cross up on the top there. And yeah, I think everything about it speaks to, the future, and it would be a beautiful addition, which we need. I mean, our building's almost 100 years old. This would be a fantastic addition to the city of Yreka. So moving forward. Is that it, Cindy?
Yep, that's all. That's all we have for you guys. So we're here to answer questions, and obviously, if there's public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Thank you, Chief Lemus. Any questions or comments from the council? Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker.
Thank you so much. Again, I think this is just an excellent presentation. It's a wonderful overview of how this project kind of was built, so to speak. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought out that the city council followed the recommendation of the actual volunteer, the actual department when it came to a general tax versus a special tax. I think that I appreciate that you brought that out.
Well,
So I just, again, want to commend you both, Mr. Ledbetter and Chief Lemus, for the work that you've done on this project. And I really appreciate the work that the fire department does for the community as well. So thank you.
Hey, Councilman Baker. Councilman Davis.
Sure. Chief Lemus, that was really nice. You and Mr. Ledbetter did an excellent job, in my opinion, of presenting this. I think the graphics get better each time you make a presentation. So I think that's great. And again, like Colleen says, I can't thank you enough for leading the council in this on the type of sales tax election that we're going to have. And I think that should really hold a lot of water.
That's
It
us.
looks to me like you might need
Oh, they're
to
gonna
go.
go. Someone's
I'm
gonna
good.
go. Those who are gonna go. Those who are gonna go.
So yeah, that's nature of the beast there. That could be a Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. Just happens to be a council meeting this time. So, but yeah, thank you for saying that.
And again, you guys do a great job for us.
Thank
Here
you.
in Yreka.
Yeah. The volunteers I'm really proud of them. They do things that you don't even know about. So good things. All good.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman Kay.
Thank you, Chief Lynn.
I just want to comment same thing. You put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. And I know when I first got on city council, this has been a hot topic now for going on 8 years. So we started making that discussion quite a while ago on what the next move was for the fire station. So it's been a lot of talk, and now it looks like, hopefully we can get things rolling. Come this election, we can get things rolling hopefully in a lot of different things, but as a country, period. But no, I thank you for all your work. And like I said, a lot of people don't realize the volunteer base on how much time you guys put into it. You guys put an amazing amount of time on medical calls. I know, like I said, my dad was one of those people that was called on numerous times because of his handicap problems that he had. So I thank the staff for that. I'll tell you what, it was a lifesaver.
Yeah.
But it is taxing on their staff because of that. So one thing I do want to ask is on all the vintage fire trucks were that's proposed to go to the new station too. And I know you had one in the front of it, you said in that slideshow there. What about the other ones that you have?
I mean, that's for future discussion, depending on, if we were able to obtain a new fire station. Some of the ones that are in the museum that are attached to the western part of the building now, as you look at it from the front on Minor Street to the right, a lot of people don't even know that it's there. And as time goes on, we've shown them, more and more that, and people just love it. So I would hope we could keep that, there, because that was the blood, sweat, and tears of some of the folks that are not with us anymore, and 50-year members. So, I mean, we'd like to be able to keep that, but we just don't know. It's going to depend on what happens down the road. Now, we could probably make more room and maybe have one additional one, have them, offset. But that's for another day discussion. I don't have any new information on that. Or, we could, probably get enough private funds to construct another museum somewhere if that was something that
Cool, yeah,
had to go away. But it's yeah, it would be a great thing if we had a curator and could have that open more often. And that is kind of something rolling around in my pea brain. But we have some people that we're losing some of that institutional knowledge too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information there that would be not lost, but there's just not that continual repetition and discussion about the history. And so Carl Varick is who I'm referring to. He'd be a great curator. He's been there for longer than me. So and there's others in the community that would be able to do it. But
well, I think
it's a good question, and that's something
part of our history. Yreka, obviously, since it was established. So back in the 1880s, it was
1856 was reorganized. I think, yeah.
Part, yeah. So it's like that's part we got to keep it live, keep it going.
Yeah,
that's part of our heritage.
There are not very many fire museums out there, and I think one of ours is one of the better ones. I'm sure.
Is.
Yeah, that I've been to.
Yeah, it's a neat setup. I really love it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Keg. Sorry, you're writing something down. All right. I don't think I have any questions. Mr. Lemus, or Chief Lemus, I will just piggyback on what the other council members have said. I've grew up with several friends, as Mr. Lemus knows, that when we go to the dinners or go to the fire hall, I look at the picture and it makes me sad because a lot of them are no longer with us and they left. Some have left too soon. But it's never easy. But to see 40 volunteers at the heyday in that picture, and most of them were my friends' dads that dedicated their time. They are, I'm being honest. And some of them not there not here anymore. It's sad that the volunteerism has lowered, but that's with every organization in Siskiyou County. Not to be depressing or anything, but today, when I was out and about, there was I think a union on strike. They're caregivers, and they have one of the signs that it kind of hit me because I'm getting to that age. And it said, "Welcome to Siskiyou County. 55% of the population is over 55 and older." Volunteering is going out. Calls are going up for medical. A lot of transition. So it's sad, but the fate now with our fire department, it's just the reality. It's going to fall into the laps of the voters, or into the hands, I should say, or you can still go to the voter booth, which some do still. But thank you for all your hard work. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Thank you for everybody who committed their time to be on the ad hoc committee for the fire department and the direction it needs to be. So you've done a great presentation. I think it's out there. And I'm frightened for the future of our fire department. I really am. What lies ahead? If that call is going to be made for medical, are they going to be able to show up with their volunteers decide, you know what, I've had enough, I'm burnt out, there's 5 of us, whatever, what have you. And or if your house catches on fire, are we going to wait for Montague to get here for 9 minutes, 10 minutes, or what have you, to the city of Yreka to get to your house? So it concerns me as a citizen, as the mayor of Yreka currently, and as a council member, to be in the situation where we are of uncertainty. But I thank you for your leadership, everybody who volunteers, and this council sitting, and the council before I sat with, for moving forward. And thank you so much. Well, with that, I will go to public comment or questions for either our city manager or our chief Lemus on our fire department. Nobody. I think everybody, great presentation. But I guess if any citizen wants to reach out to any of us, reach out to our chief. He's available for questions or comments. So they're here. So thank you. We'll close public comment. Thank you, guys. All right. So we have no new business. Now we're moving on to item 11, city manager staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Yreka City Council. So just a brief report here on 9/23/24. I had a great opportunity with council members Baker and Davis to tour the Rogue Retreat. So we were, I think, as exhilarated as a couple other council members are at what the services provided up there, the organization that they have up there, and just to hear the story and to hear the growing pains and how they've accomplished so much. I think they service 450 to 500 homeless individuals in Southern Oregon. So pretty incredible, quite frankly. On 9/26, I met the new superintendent of the elementary schools here in Yreka. And then based off of Great Northern Services getting on our agenda here with the P&P document, talk to them as well. And I'm looking to see if we can't get a joint project with the elementary schools in order to maybe rectify through the CDBG grants that we normally come to you guys with in the summertime, just exploring opportunities maybe where we can alleviate some of the poverty or income deficiencies of some of the students that are across the street here. I'm not sure how that would look, but I have another meeting with that superintendent and we're going to kind of try to game plan some joint projects. We're also talking about the possibility of a parking lot because we share this one currently. On 9/20, I met with the other new superintendent of the high school. So we have a new superintendent over there as well. And we went over the homecoming parade route. And then we also were talking about some desires that he has. Looks like we may be able to do it. We're looking at restriping the parking lot right next to the track because unfortunately, there's too many spaces and there's not enough room. So there's a center aisle that ultimately he would like to see that removed, and our public works director understands why. It makes it a nightmare to try to get out of there, unfortunately. But I do wonder, because I know a council member is over there, I live over in that area, and I just do wonder about parking long term. Quite frankly, it seems like these events, especially with the old gym and all the plays that are happening as well, there's not enough parking, or there's enough street parking, I should say. I also just wanted to touch base on this catastrophic hurricane with what I would anticipate being a rising death toll, quite frankly. And I want to advocate for the public to get involved with our city safety element and the local hazard mitigation plan. I know that we have advertised and we will be advertising that. And then also to engage the county, to engage state OES on just what preparation looks like, because I heard it over and over and over again, and rightfully so, quite frankly. No one would have ever expected this up in a mountain town to have basically a flood during a hurricane of this epic proportion. But these are the types of 100-year events that we're talking about planning for. And so I think it is a good opportunity for everybody to understand that more than likely fire is going to get even more dangerous than it already is. And so engaging us and talking to us about what preparedness looks like will also help us understand what the community needs from us. So I just advocate to please come and engage. I also wanted to just touch base on the fact that this morning we woke up to the entire Eastern Seaboard on strike. So the dock workers, at least they were this morning. I doubt that they've rectified that. What does this mean? Well, this means that obviously the supply chain disturbances are more than likely back, and that ultimately we should be looking at our own future labor negotiations as continued labor negotiations and strikes happen around the country. And obviously, I think I'm not the only one to be so excited about Highway 3. The grade, Highway 3 appears to be at grade. And so it doesn't look like they're going to lay down any more asphalt right now. They're adding asphalt to the side streets to be conformed. And I saw striping and beacon crosswalks had already started. So we're getting very, very close to the end of this project, believe it or not. And then finally, Lola will be in Montague on Wednesday, October 9th at 5 p.m. So if you have not already and would like to attend, if you can please RSVP email to our city clerk, Cindy Prohaska, and we'll see you in Montague Wednesday, October 9th. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leber. Okay. I'll go to council members for statements, comment, requests. Council Baker. She's always eager to go. You guys
you.
are never
so
ready
excited.
to go. I know.
I'm excited about being on the city council and being involved in the city. I know that we all are. So, of course. And, you know, the only person that I have listening to me at my house is not really a person, it's a little dachshund. So, this is my opportunity to speak.
I know the feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
But not a dachshund, to a big one and a medium, but
yeah. So as Mr. Ledbetter shared, Councilman Davis and I and Mr. Ledbetter, we did have the opportunity to tour the Rogue Retreat in Medford, and it was pretty impressive, to say the least. And one of the things that I was really struck with was how all of the stakeholders in that community have come together to work together. And it's an extremely comprehensive program. I think that they said that they had 56% success rate. I'm thinking that that was the number they said. Maybe it was a little bit higher, but they defined success as somebody who's actually continuing to work some type of program or gaining employment. They're working at bettering their lives, and I thought that was really just pretty impressive. And I appreciated that there was a gentleman who opened up his home, which is a pallet, so that we could take a look at his pallet. And the pallets are pretty impressive. So I'm looking forward to the pallet shelter here in Yreka. And on September 23rd, I also attended the C2C meeting, and C2C is the Collier Information and Interpretive Center. We run the kiosk, we're JPA, and we run the kiosk at Collier Rest Area to provide tourist information to the close to 1 million visitors at Collier's on an annual basis. And Collier Rest Area has been closed by Caltrans. They have no plan to reopen it at this time. It was closed because of the water quality from the Klamath River. That the state uses water from the Klamath River for their irrigation system and also for their restrooms up at Collier. And those filtration systems have been ruined due to the poor quality of the water that's coming out of the Klamath River right now. And that's just the premier rest area in California. And I know I've taken my family up there just for picnics because it's so beautiful. In addition to that, C2C has been working on a project for an interpretive walk along the Klamath River. They've been working on that for a number of years. I've only sat on that JPA for just since I took office. So I'm the newbie. I'm the new kid on the block there. But all of that work now is just kind of up in the air. Caltrans has given the JPA the authority to go in and put up the signs. We just don't know if they're going to be able to be appreciated by everybody. And I personally, personal feelings here, I'm really upset that Caltrans, who appears to be a totally independent entity with the state of California, opted to close that rest area without much prior notification. And I attended the LTC meeting, the Local Transportation Commission meeting, virtually on September 25th, specifically to hear the representative from Caltrans talk about the closure. And when he was asked about plans to reopen it, it was just kind of silent. So I just don't think that's right. That's an area that has just been so pristine and such a nice entry place from Oregon or leaving California that really, I think, represents just the beauty of our area. And So I took it upon myself as a private citizen to reach out to our state senator, our assembly person, as well as our congressman, because they're involved. His office is involved because of the Klamath, the dam removal project. And I have to say that I was not encouraged by any of the information that I heard. But my message is, our state and federal representatives are available to us. And they like to hear from their constituents. Just because they didn't have the answers that I wanted last week doesn't mean that they won't be working towards some answers for us. And I'll get off my soapbox about that. But I'm disappointed. It makes me sad when I travel up and down I-5 now and see that rest area is closed. And with that, Mr. Ledbetter, I have a request, and I don't know what this is going to look like when it finally comes to council, but I was so impressed, as you know, with the Rogue Retreat. And I started thinking about our area. And Mr. Kague, who has just worked so diligently and is so committed and passionate about homeless programs, homelessness, and homeless programs for the homeless people here in Yreka. I don't think we express to you our gratitude enough, because we know that you put in a lot of hours, but we also know that you're leaving the council. So I don't know what this is going to look like. So bear with me for just a minute.
Sure.
But I would like to see the city council come together to either recommend an ad hoc committee be formed, or specific programs that the city is working on. And I had mentioned an idea last week about limiting, no panhandling. And I don't even know if that's legal, but I think that there's a lot of things that Yreka can be doing outside of the county. I mean, just little things. I just feel like we don't have a really comprehensive plan on how to deal with specific situations. In addition to that, do we have a plan from the county? Have we received a plan from the county about warming shelters? And so I would like that looked into. So I don't know. I wish I could be more articulate, but I think we just kind of need to be looking at a plan for Yreka, and not necessarily stepping on county toes or state toes, but, how are we going to deal with unique situations within the city of Yreka with regard to the homelessness? So with that, I will leave that to you to work your magic and come up with something.
Yeah, so it sounds like at a future meeting, we'll have a homeless item or an item dedicated to that topic, unhoused homeless. And we'll discuss at that point the possibility of the formation of an ad hoc committee and what that oversight of that ad hoc committee would look like, the term of that. It's also important to put an end date on those things. And if you're open to, I can't guarantee that it'll be here next meeting, but at some point here in the next couple months, we'll get it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baker.
And finally, I would just like to wish Council Member McCoy a quick and speedy recovery, and we miss him. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think Councilman Kague knows, because I went to bat with him for him a couple times on him being dismissed by some people before of his dedication to the homeless, and maybe he'll come back after he leaves here and be on the ad hoc committee to help, because you can't take away 8 years of everything he's done here. And people don't realize, and whether it be one or two people are going to take these seats up here, they don't realize the time he's put in. It's not just coming here one Tuesday or Tuesday a month. He's been spending countless hours every week, days off, weekends, advocating for the homeless, other meetings, traveling to Oregon, seeing what they have in place. So these are big shoes to fill. And I don't know who, whoever takes, maybe take my seat or is going to take his seat or anybody sitting here is going to take his place because he's put in countless hours. And I just can't imagine him gone because he's advocated for me, helped me, educated me tremendously. Oh my gosh. And so he's going to, it's not goodbye yet. And I don't want to get emotional because I'm already emotional from Mr. McCoy. So I'm emotional. Sorry, I'm an emotional person. Um, sometimes I'm being honorary sometimes too. I got a little bit of both on my family side. So anyways, you're right. Councilman Baker is we don't give him enough credit, and I just want everybody to know it's just not sitting here two times. We all go to different meetings, different committees, but the committees he's been on for the unhoused population and, fighting for them, but also fighting for our citizens to have their rights regarding, the unhoused population has been just tremendous. So I echo Councilman Baker's thoughts to you. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Middleton. I want to thank Colleen for the Collier Rest Area report. That was very informative to me. I didn't realize it was a water quality situation that shut the door. Well, that's good that you are on that committee. You'll get them rattled up a little. The Rogue Retreat that Mr. Ledbetter and Ms. Baker and I went on, I was impressed with all the things that everybody said, but the pallet shelters were something that were really interesting, and the urban camping that they had there. I thought those things were pretty phenomenal. Actually, I didn't realize what a pallet shelter was. I had it viewed as a shack. It's really not. It's a pretty good. It would be a great shed or a shop building, to store your stuff in. It's pretty small, but they have a bed and they have a few other things. No water, no toilet or anything, but you can get a TV in there if you choose to. They also had the we call them the blue monsters, but the toilets that are outside toilets. Plus, they had um, washing facilities for their clothes and restrooms for the men and the women if they needed to have a shower. So, and they also had, the wash machine and dryers that were available. It was pretty impressive, and it was only on about what did they say, 3.2 acres. It was pretty close to that, and they had lots of room to spare. It was kind of amazing. I was like both Mr. Ledbetter and Ms. Baker. I was quite impressed. You know, you talked about the highway that's going through Highway 3 through Yreka. There's a 40-mile-an-hour sign down there by Shasta Valley Chainsaw and HFR Power Sports. Can you believe that? And it says 30 everywhere else.
I know.
You can go for a little bit at 30, but then you can pick it up to 40. Then you got to go back down to 30 and get down the road. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's
been that way for a while.
At the Fire Safe Council, just there's a note. They plan on getting the Outson Road project going, and the weather's not right, of course, but it's coming soon. Also, the Forest Service will be doing some burning in the Humbug area. They have about 400 acres up there they're going to burn, but not right now, is what the word was. And that's good. Mr. Lemus was there and he spread the word a little bit for the Yreka Fire Department. In particular, one thing that caught my ear was their curtain burner. They're getting that started and staffed, and up and running, I think that's going to be really good for, burning within the city of Yreka or around the city of Yreka. So more power to you, Chief. Also, there's a mitigation plan in thought for Yreka. And I think South Yreka said something that kind of caught my mind, is that they were involved in the park fire. And the park fire was huge. They had a water tender that they had on that fire. And so I asked kind of a couple of questions, and he said that they have a spare water tender that they use just for that. And they send somebody with it, and it paid about $10,000 for the person that staffed it, and the tender itself got about 40,000. Now, that's not clear profit, obviously. There's maintenance and upkeep, and got it. Most of the time they feed people that are involved, but they made a little bit of money for their South Yreka Fire Department. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And by golly, that's what I got for you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman Cake.
I just want to thank you guys for recognizing the amount of time that I've put into, especially the homelessness. And this is something that shouldn't be taken lightly for the next, person that sits in my seat here, because between when I was mayor and when I was doing the homeless thing, I was probably spending, if you want to believe it or not, about 20 hours a week between the two. And so taking, the position of being on the council should not be taken lightly. There's a lot of time that goes into it. And it's something that if you do it right, you're going to spend a lot of time, and you're doing it because you're passionate about your city and you want to see the city excel in a positive way. And so I'm glad, Colleen, Ms. Baker, thank you for bringing that up, that we need to get an ad hoc committee going and see some succession going on the committee. So I would look forward to having the future council and sharing what I've put into it. I've got piles and piles and piles of notes that can be used and to future council, because there's a lot that needs to go on, just like what you guys seen up there, the road retreat. I'm so glad that you guys were able to visit that, because it has been an example for what we've been doing here when it comes to the pallet shelter structure that's going on. Like I expressed last time, that I'd like to see an urban campsite. And with an urban campsite, like I also expressed, that it needs to be a place that's secured, regulated, just like the road retreat is. There's a lot of regulations, but by doing that, it actually will get the individuals off the street, help them into the process of rehabilitation or whatever that may be, out of homelessness, in other words. So there's a lot of avenues that those helps those individuals to get off the streets, and emphasizes their good points and gets them onto a path of recovery of some sort. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to be talked about, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring it up anyways tonight, that we need to push forward, because it's not only that I'm chair of the COC, which is Continuum of Care, which we have a meeting tomorrow. So anybody wants to attend, it's 1:30 at Behavioral Health. It's open to the public. But I also chair the point in time count for Siskiyou County, and also chair the point in time count for the 7 counties of the North State. So there's a lot of information that's out there that can benefit the city. And getting back to what Ms. Baker is discussing about, is it something that maybe we want to look into, not necessarily stepping on the county's feet as far as that goes, but there's a lot of funding out there that can be used through the COC that us as a city can apply for. Anybody that's part of the COC can apply for this funding. And there's a lot that's out there. So I would encourage the city to start looking into that funding, because I have a hunch that we're going to need to pursue some of that funding to help better the city and the citizens of Yreka to make this a better place. So I encourage that. So thank you, Ms. Baker, for bringing that up, because we need to move forward on it. C2C, which you were talking about earlier, thank you for being part of that. I was actually a part of the C2C previously too, and so was Mr. Middleton.
I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't? I thought you joined in for a while there.
No.
So anyways, I was part of the C2C, and sad to see that rest area the way it is now. You look at it and you drive by and it's all dried up. It's pretty pitiful looking, as beautiful it was as it was. I'm hoping that, if once they get things situated and they can get the water source situated again, that they'll bring it back. But like you said, it's sad that they just kind of left everybody high and dry. And because of the dam removal, that this is affecting that rest area, which affects all of Siskiyou County on tourism and everything else. Because I can't remember what the statistics was on how many people go through that rest area, but it's a lot of people go through that rest area. So it's sad to see us losing that valuable resource, being able to get tourism in our city throughout Siskiyou County, because that's gone now for a while. And if they can't bring back some type of water source, it's going to be gone for quite a while, because it's sad. But with that in mind, I think that's all. I'll just kind of leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. And just like I said, I thank you guys for recognizing the amount of time, because I don't think people realize how much time just goes in sitting in any one of our seats. Not just me because of homelessness. Yeah, I kind of drew the straw, if you want to call it the short end, the long end of the straw, whatever you want to call it, when I picked that one back quite a few years ago to be involved in. And it's been quite the venture, to quite the ride. And every citizen, I know that I get emails on a consistent basis from everybody and on how to fix homelessness. And I can pretty much answer most questions on what city's doing what and how they're handling it and what time they've spent and everything else, and what the numbers are in the state of California and everything else. But like I said, I just want to emphasize to the future council people that there's a lot of time that goes into this position sitting up here. It doesn't matter what ad hoc committee or whatever you're in, there's a lot of time that goes into this, and don't take it lightly. Because if you look at it like I do, and I've lost a lot of sleep, you can ask my wife, I've lost lots and lots of sleep over this position, because I don't take it lightly. I make sure that I'm doing the best I can. And I just encourage people that's running to do the same. So thank you for your support on everybody that's been out there and voted for me in the past, and sent me emails and encouraging or discouraging or just complaining. That's okay, because the complaints are all taken. They're all listened to, and they're addressed one way or the other. They may not hear it in the city council meeting, but they're talked about amongst all of us, and one way or the other. And hopefully we can get some more and more things fixed in the future. So thank you.
He's not leaving yet.
No. He's got three more meetings.
A little while to go. Maybe me too. Might be going with you. Thank you. Yeah, my first year I didn't get much sleep either when I took my seat. Imagine that.
Yeah.
That was a turbulent first year here. But anyways, yeah, don't blink because it goes by fast. I can't believe 4 years have gone by for me and 8 years have gone by for you. And wow, 2 years already for you guys. Crazy.
Oh.
Time just moves right along. My dad always told me when I was wishing to be 18, wishing to be 21, 25, all those fun ages, be out of the house, drink, rent a car, whatever, he told me, he said, son, wait, he said, be careful what you wish for. He said, "Whatever you get faster goes." Boy, was he right. And I always remember him talking to me about that. So I'm going to be really quick. I attended the Siskiyou Cattlewomen Beer and Brew Fest. They invited me to be a judge for the appetizers. That was fun. I was fooled by the dinner, took my dinner home. But yeah, it was a lot of great appetizers, businesses down there. And I ran into Stacy Jackson, who's, I don't think she's the president, but she's on the board, very highly involved. And she said they served over 400 people, and our downtown area was packed. Some of the shops were open, most of the shops were open. People were in buying things. People are supporting the cattle women who support um, scholarships and many organizations. So it was good to see that event down. And she said she really appreciates this council for the support because we got up. A lot of people came up to me and said, "Thank you for bringing us here." I said, "It just wasn't me. It was the rest of the council." And they said, and she acknowledged that it was the council that supported their event. And it was 200 last year, 400 this year, and they're going to go for more next year. So um it was great to see. It was great to see. And that's what I think all of us envisioned. Me when I took my seat here, wanted events downtown, brought several of them back with the support of this council and the council before. And so I hope they just keep on coming. I'm sad to learn of one of our businesses there's going to be closing their doors, a local cafe in town because of an aging building. That just goes to talk about aging building and the aging infrastructure of Yreka. No fault due to theirs. They have an aging kitchen. The landlord is from out of town. They don't have a lease. They're aging people. And I guess I could probably announce it. She told me they've announced it, but it is Nature's Kitchen. But they will keep their vitamin shop and bakeries and coffee open. But the cafe is it's aging kitchen. And the guy lives down south. It's kind of sad. That building used to be packed in the day. There's no tenants in there. So I hope you know, it's just the sign of the times. A lot of the buildings in Yreka are older. And so it's just very sad to hear. It's a very great place. They put a lot of time down there, that family, running it for over the years. That taken, I think, I can't remember how long they've been there, but quite a while. Um, so I would encourage, we need to start focusing on some of these older buildings and, the future of our weekend, the future of business coming in and what the owners of the building or what they're going to be faced with the new laws from the health department, the county. They're in charge of doing those inspections and saying what is the new law and what's going to be required. So, um, yeah, just saddens me to see them go and any business leave our city for any reason. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. And again, I want to wish my pro tem and my sidekick next to me and council member, I wish him a speedy recovery, Paul, if you're listening. And I have talked to him and I wish him speedy recovery and wait for his return. So thank you guys. Good night. Meeting adjourned.